Alright everybody, we are back with the Derek DLC. Sorry, I'm just getting adjusted. That was my chair, by the way. Alright, so it was afternoon on a sleepy summer day. Nothing urgent needed to be done. No real plans had been made. You and your company were simply hanging out around the local beach. Free as the breeze. It was one of those good days where the world was your own and you had two of your close friends there to enjoy it with. Derek was on your left and Cove was on your right. 3 pairs of footprints trailed along in the soft white sand behind you. Derek had only been dropped off minutes ago. He'd brought with him those clothes you had to leave at his house after your night swim. You had taken a minute to put them away. But instead of everyone going inside your house or heading to Cove's, you'd simply started to walk. It was definitely hot out. Southern California tended to get that way, but it wasn't so bad that you had to hide away from the beating rays of sun. Cove's hands were in his pockets. He spoke out while facing away from you. Instead, he lazily watched the unchanging horizon. What do you guys want to do? You and Derek took on matching squints. Normally, there'd be endless answers to that question, but the lackadaisical mood made it feel like trying to solve math problems in a dream. You had nothing. Your thoughts were moving as slowly as the tide that inched toward the shore bit by bit. Finally, the resident problem solver offered a possibility with a yawn and a tall stretch of his arms over his head. Want to walk to the grocery store? What? Cove twisted his face to the opposite side and stared at Derek. A stuttering laugh expressed his disbelief. Why would we go to grocery shopping? With a shrug, Derek scratched his cheek and explained, well, it's probably different here. But where I live, the closest place to get stuff isn't a convenience store or a mall or anything. It's a grocery store. So sometimes me and my bros will take a trip down there and see what we can find. Alright, what do we want to say, guys? That sounds neat. Wouldn't you find groceries? You joked. I'll try it if you want to. You stare at him with the same questioning look as Cove. You nodded along with the explanation. You got some interesting hobbies, Derek, you teased. I mean, wouldn't you find groceries? Derek just laughed. The puzzled reactions from his two friends didn't deter him at all. It's really not like normal errands. You can get anything you want. There are a lot of things at the store you never even think about when you're there with your parents, and a list of stuff for the house. Cole's formally heavily. Drooping lids lifted high, showing his bright blue eyes. He glanced between you and Derek for final confirmation that you were seriously doing this today. Derek had complete confidence in his stance. It could be interesting. The corners of your neighbor's mouth perked up as well. Alright, let's go. Cool. It was another successful bit of improvising on Derek's part, but he put his hands on his hips eagerly. I'm pretty sure I know where the store is, but the two of you should probably lead the way. Leave it to us. Cove puffed his chest out with pride. He was a true local to the town after being here for so many years. And your walk continued, now with actual destination in mind. You retraced the remnants of the steps in the sand, heading back to the neighborhood, then up the hill and out of the residential area. When you turned onto the main street, the grocery store was already visible in distance. It also wasn't going anywhere, so you enjoyed the stroll together. You would arrive when you arrived. Derek continued to sell the concept of his plan by recounting stories of him and his brother's past adventures in Groceryland. So, we'd gotten super lucky because the discount rack had a whole cherry pie for way off. Me, George, and Nico pulled our pocket change to get it, and then we had an entire pie like that. We sat outside on a bench near the store and ate it from the pan. Sounds nice. I'm not big on cherry, but it still sounds nice. It was cut into 6 slices. I only let the kids have 1 piece each. It was already a lot of sugar. I didn't want to make them food sick. I tried to come up with how we were going to explain half a pie to Mom, but Nico had his own idea. He took a slice he wasn't allowed to eat and instead threw it at George. Cole's mouth gaped open at the audacity. Derek laughed out loud at the memory and the response it got in the present. He'd been watching way too many cartoons with food fights and pies to the face, I guess. You'd believe that if there were one thing Nicholas loved, it was Derek, and if there was another, it was cars, and if there was a third, it was copying things he had seen others do. George didn't let that slide, and he took the 5th piece of the pie and squished it right back into Nicholas's head. His hair was covered in dark cherry goo. It was a mess. But if you can't beat them, join them. I dumped the last pie on myself. Why? Stop them from fighting over it, and they would have ended up feeling bad if they got messy and I didn't. Nicholas doesn't think very far ahead. Oh, what'd you do next? We found a water fountain around the back of the grocery store and tried to scrape off as much pie as possible. Then we went home. Mom still figured out what happened and we all had to take real baths, but it was still a good time. A fond smile settled on Derek's face. He glanced up at the sky while getting lost in an entirely private moment of reminiscing. Cove was still reflecting on the story with amusement. Alright, what do we want to say? That's adorable. I hope we'll find a whole pie. Huh, grocery stores are more exciting than I thought. You giggled at Derek's storytelling. You shook your head at how ridiculous. Oh, maybe. Cove ruffled a hand through his hair, possibly considering how it might have felt to have an entire pie in his locks. He smirked. A pie throwing fight is way more memorable than I would have guessed. The most unexpected thing that happened to me when I was out shopping was the time I got a free balloon and accidentally popped it pretty much immediately. Shoot. It was Derek's turn to chuckle in nervous disbelief. His grin shook just imagining it. Rest in peace, Dolphin Balloon. Rest in pieces. Dolphin Balloon. That was so terrible. That was so sad, but also really funny. I'm sorry. That was how our first shopping trip ended in Cove. You smiled quietly over the memory. Rest in pieces, Dolphin Balloon. Yeah, rest in peace. The conversation stayed on the topic of store-related doubtings. Derek had plenty more experiences to share. The chat didn't last much longer, though. Soon you crossed the street and arrived at Sunset Birds, a local mom-and-pop grocery store. You and your two co-shoppers headed right through the automatic doors. A shiver went through your spine when you stepped out of the afternoon heat and into the powerful air-conditioned store. Shiny, orderly aisles stretched out in front of you. Each one was tightly packed with a plethora of brightly packaged merchandise. Some people, the rows and rows of items might have been a slog to go through, but seen through Derek's eyes, it was a scavenger hunt with endless opportunities. Though it was Cove who spoke first. Do we need a cart? Nope. Probably not. Derek usually waved that off. I still fixated ahead on the altar of consumerism ahead. We're here for quality, not quantity. Besides, do we even have enough money to buy a lot of things? Oh, wait. Cove suddenly burrowed his hand in his pockets once again. He tucked them in deep and he didn't find what he had gone in search of. I don't have my wallet. It's at home. Me either. I thought we'd just be in the neighborhood all day. Yeah. It's cool, I figured. Derek's lack of a reaction couldn't smooth over Cove's obvious response to the situation. His wavy eyebrows pulled down together. Could have stopped by to get it before we left. Nah, this is my idea, so it's my treat. I've got like $8 and some change. That's enough for all of us to spend around a few dollars or put it together for one thing that's going to be plenty. Thanks, Derek. Not even $10 between us. Wow, it's like we're kids again. I promise I'll pay you back. Yeah, that'll be enough for this time. He smiled gratefully. We'll promise we'll pay him back. $3? Not even that much. It's really no big deal. I still want to. I will too. Fine, you guys win. Cove's hands finally deserted his pockets and one came up to rub his forearm instead. Alright, okay, thanks. Let's get something good. Derek took a step forward as he cheered. Alright, here we go. You went down the nearest aisle, swiveling your head to check both sides of the path as you swung your currently empty of good arms through the air. The first stop of the market expedition was like the discount rack in the back. You didn't have the same luck as Derek and his brothers. It was the only place in the store that was barren. One shelf had several dented cartons of chicken stock. Stuffed in the bottom of the rack was a bag of plain rolls. The sight was pretty pathetic. Too bad. He shrugged like it was nothing, but his words told a different story. It could have been easy if there was a pie here, or a cake, or one of those pans with a bun of cinnamon rolls. Wistfully, Cove continued to mumble a list of miscellaneous pastries that might have potentially been able to get if the fate had aligned. Good, this keeps things interesting. We can still get the stock. It's such a good deal. Sorry, Cove. I was hoping just for cake this time too. This keeps things interesting. Let's do that. There's still plenty of possibilities. And if push comes to shove, we can afford a small treat like getting 3 boxes with 1 slice of cake each. Wouldn't eat more than that anyway. The deadpan expression Cove directed straight at Derek made him lift a curious brow. What? You'd want more? Cove could have eaten half the pie himself. Yeah, speak for yourself, Derek. 1 slice wouldn't cut it. You don't need that much. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Just, at least 2 pieces, I have to agree with Cove. Alright, it's a good thing we didn't find one then. Hey. Pushed past the already pilfered treasure chest and continued to chat. You passed cereals, pastas, and sauces, and an aisle full of chip bags and soda packets, and more. The dry goods and canned foods now behind you, you arrived at the produce section. The arrangement of goods was much more open than the narrow row of shelves. The three of you could spread out more between pallets and baskets of fresh fruits and vegetables. Derek grabbed an avocado to check its ripeness. Cove stared at the watermelons, appreciating the fruit, but his blank face made it obvious he had no idea how to tell if they were good or not. Then a recognizable crackling sound sputtered to life. Both the boys with you lifted their heads without conversing. The two rushed over to the back wall where the leafy greens were piled up, and a light spray of mist burst from the sprinklers, raining down gently on the produce. Cove and Derek stuck their hands into the damp air while snickering. Derek rubbed his hands together to pretend he was washing them. Cove lifted his hands to be close to the source of the water as possible. And you also had your hands in the veggie mist. That's what was silly. You thought it was weird. You shook your face into it. Let's do the sticking of the hands in the mist. That's kind of cool. And also kind of gross. You'd made your own dash across the floor to enjoy the tiny dusting of water drops on your fingers. The impromptu public shower ended shortly, and it was back to the center of the space for you. Knowing grins were shared around us as you regrouped, there was a comfort in realizing someone else had the same silly habit as you. With the distraction over the main goal unresolved, Cove helplessly glanced around the store. He was totally stumped. There's a lot of things I like, but I don't have to get any of it now. How do you pick? There was a whine in his tone, and he crossed his arms out of frustration. Derek kept it light, same as he would when dealing with his much younger siblings. Dude, you need more imagination. Turn lemons into lemonade. Ooh, I don't like those type of people. Like positive polys, very energetic. Ooh. No, this is not for me, y'all. It's not for me. Anyways, actually, wait, yeah, that's what we should do. We should get some lemons and make our own lemonade. Concept struck Cove just as much as Derek. Oh, that would be cool. You give a nod if that's what you want. No, that's an idea. I think so too. That's an idea. Thanks. Derek marched with purpose to a box that was heavy with mesh bags and desired yellow citrus. He tapped a finger to his chin, then bounced from one foot to the other. Derek was suddenly a lemon connoisseur who scrutinized offerings with utmost focus. He selected 2 bags, one in each hand. The bottom of each pack was set against his upturned palms. Derek jiggled the lemons and tried to get a sense of their weight. Finally, the bag on the right was deemed superior, and Derek carefully laid the unwanted bundle back onto the sack. Then he lifted the winner high, showing it off to Cove and you. I got my thing. It's only $3. Your turns. This time Cove didn't look aimlessly at what was in front of him. He shut his eyes and put all of his mind's power into conjuring up an answer. Soon he stole a quick glance at Derek's lemons through squinted eyes, and then he took his turn. Come on. Let's do it. He made another trip across the length of the store, this time at much brisker pace. Cove had a target in sight, even if you couldn't see it yet. He blew past all the food aisles, set shelves, and the cleaning supplies. He only stopped when you thought you'd made it to one random aisle in the store with cheap plastic kid toys. This is it. His words were eager and certain. There was a childish excitement to Cove that was fitting for the location. He reached a hand in the wall with yo-yos and bubble blowers. His fingers landed on the baggie of water balloons. Drinking lemonade is going to make me want to have fun outside too. We can use this for that. I honestly can't picture Cove being like super fun like this. Like the main game, like I feel like Cove isn't like kind of like outgoing like this at all. Anyways, whatever. Perfect plan, Cove. Good work, and you could do it. It's great you found something. I'm amazed you didn't get food. Alright, you grinned at the two. Let's grin. For all the previous indecisions, the sweetness of victory was all way more worth it for Cove. His selection was even cheaper than Derek's, $2 and a bit of change. All that was left was Derek's money was $3 and your choice of prize. Derek patiently cradled his bag of lemons while Cove watched you expectantly, excited to see what final piece of the puzzle would be. You reflected on the theme that was forming your own preferences and shareability of different goods. In the end, you opened your mouth and said, how about chips to snack on? Let's get some candy to eat with the lemonade. I want those little umbrellas to put in the drink. Can we get the discount rolls? Can I get gum? I'll take a yo-yo. How about... Get some candy to eat with the lemonade. I don't know if they want... Let's get some candy. Yeah, it's either between these two. The little umbrellas, that'd be cute, but do we have cups? Let's get some candy to eat with the lemonade. Do they like can't? Sure, fuck it. Yes, we need that. You got to lead the way out of the toy aisle and back into the thick of the grocery store traffic. You wound around the aisle until you found the right spot. You took another minute to pick the best candies, and then you were done. With the items in hand, you, Derek, and Cove went to the checkout line. Derek dug out his pocket change and paid for the odd arrangement items. None of you bothered to get a bag. Derek was already in one, and you and Cove could easily carry your things on your own. After a successful grocery trip, you returned to the great outdoors for the walk back to the neighborhood. This kind of outing reminded you that it wasn't about what you were doing. What counted was for who you were doing it with. Outside, you gathered in front of the crosswalk and waited for a chance to get back on the main sidewalk. While standing around, you unanimously decided that you'd bring your goods to Cove's house and make the lemonade there. Your home had the risk of Elizabeth deciding she wanted a pre-dinner snack. She wouldn't appreciate having a lemonade making operation in the way. There was no worry of that in the Holden condo. Cole's mom and dad were out, and even if they weren't, they were his parents, not his bossy big siblings. They wouldn't even dream of throwing the three of you out of the kitchen. Derek was thinking along similar lines based on what he said next. Honestly, man, I can't wrap my head around what it's like to not have any siblings hanging around the house at all. I don't mean that you're weird for that. It's gotta be so different. It is. I have my dad here. My mom is staying right now, too.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not the same. Parents take care of the kids, and the kids have a bunch of stuff they need. Every day has to be about me and my brothers. If we go out to eat, will everyone like the stuff there? Will George be too picky, or are we all old enough to do whatever the thing is, or is Nicholas too little? My birthday is the only time I can do everything that I want for the whole time, and I still choose to keep my bros in mind, even though my parents don't make me. See, I'm an only child, and I don't deal with that. Like, I'm more like, I guess, Cove in that matter. So I definitely don't relate with Derek. I don't mind, but it's crazy imagining a world where I don't have to do that. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Cove's eyes darted back and forth, and he bit the inside of his cheek. Guess having siblings or not changes how someone thinks. I figured people would be who they are no matter what, but maybe I would have needed to be at least a little different if I had to share my parents in life all the time. Yeah, things would be different. I'm glad both of you are the way you are. I can relate to that, Derek. I wonder who I'd be without Elizabeth. Better. I don't even want to imagine the world. Yikes. You quietly consider the topic. Just quietly consider. Yep, like I said, it's weird to think about. The road was clear, so Derek got the conversation and his legs moving again. He started preparations by listing off what you need to gather when you made back sugar, ideally with some ice, and really cold water, a pitcher or something like that. Do you have one of those lemon squeezers? We could do it by hand if we gotta. With every object Derek recited, Cove nodded along plainly. He was watching something off in the distance. His faraway thoughts made Derek's words reach him less and less until Derek noticed the lack of reaction. He called to Cove more loudly to catch his attention. Are you okay, dude? Oh. Cove? Sorry. Cove blinked as his brain snapped back into place at the center of his head. It's nothing. What were we talking about? Derek spun the lemon bag into a mini tornado by twisting it around tight from the bottom and then releasing it. He snickered. I was just making plans for making the lemonade. Okay. The rest of the trip passed by comfortably. Derek carried the conversation and Cove really paid attention from then on. Once you had arrived in the neighborhood and reached Cove's front door, the resident of the building opened it without needing a key. It was already unlocked. Derek gasped upon seeing such a lack of security. Cove, however, was so relaxed and content that he yawned while going inside. That unknowingly cut off Derek's chance to question Cove about his choice not to lock the door. He simply followed his friend inside, and you did as well. Cove leisurely crossed his living room to drop his bag of water balloons on the coffee table later. He left his candies there alongside it.
I'm on it.
Alright. Derek went straight into the kitchen. He had his lemon bag over his shoulder like a gym pack and flipped it over to sit it beside the sink. He slipped his thumbs through the holes of the mesh and tore it. Where's your colander? Colander? I don't know what the fuck did that say? I don't know. My bad, y'all. Cove paused, looking I don't know how to say that, at the wall. Then he turned and projected his confusion across the counter towards the source of it.
What?
My what? Undeterred, Derek was quick to offer a rephrase, a strainer. In the lower cabinet, the one on the left, Derek pressed his hands in the marble and leaned forward with a grin. Thanks, Cove. I've never heard of a strainer being called a colander before in my life. Neither have I. Can't believe you didn't know what a colander is. You learn something new every day, huh, Cove? Oh, I totally knew it, Derek. Yeah, I'd never heard of that. Really? Wow. Then the spiky-haired chef ducked down and disappeared from your sight. If you could call someone who made lemonade a chef, that is. When he popped back into the view, framed by the back of the wall and support beams at the front of the kitchen, Derek was holding a silver strainer. He plopped it into the sink, and it sharply clinked against the metal basin. Derek took the bag he had set nearby and dumped every single lemon into the waiting container. He turned the faucet so he could clean the cherry fruits. The sound of the water running added an extra layer of relaxation to the atmosphere. Cove stopped dawdling, and joined in the already hard at work Derek in the kitchen. He grabbed a cutting board and a large knife from the upper drawer. It was his house, and he had wordlessly claimed the responsibility for the riskiest part of making the lemonade. Cove also directed you towards the sugar and a few other things. As it turned out, Mr. Holden didn't have an actual lemon squeezer, so you were going to have to be doing that by hand. He did have a perfectly crystal clear glass pitcher that'd be perfect for lemonade. The body of it was a completely round ball shape. It had a narrow edge that pulled in at the top, with one side hinged into a spout. As far as you could tell, it had never been used. Hey. Have you made lemonade before, Nori, Cove? Derek casually questioned both of you while he hefted the so-called colander up and down to shake off some of the water clinging to the freshly washed lemons. Nope, never. Maybe I don't remember. I've done it a few times. I have, but only in the summer. Make outside. Maybe I don't remember. I made a really simple lemonade before, just for me. I'd squeeze one lemon into a glass of water and dump it in a spoonful of sugar. It wasn't that great, but it was easy. Cool. Derek hummed while placing lemons on a clean kitchen towel. He took a fruit from the colander with his left hand, passed it over with his right, and placed it down while grabbing a new one. I've made it before too. Fresh lemonade is so good. I'm excited for this. So am I. Your tools were all prepared now, so the team shifted into the actual creation of the traditional summer drink. Cove would cut the lemons into chunks. Derek gave Cove a tip to roll the lemons against the board before slicing them to get the juices going. You and Derek worked hard to squish the fruits. You squished the lemon parts all over the pitcher itself with a smaller strainer balanced over the mouth of it to catch the seeds. Piece by piece, you crushed the thick peel into itself to pop the little sacs of juice in the fruit. The tips of your fingers begin to wrinkle after a while. Oh, I hate that. I hate the texture of that. But slowly, a murky liquid pooled at the bottom of the glass container. When enough fruits were chopped, Cove joined in the juicing effort. The three of you huddled around the counter together. You leaned over the pitcher and strained to get even more. Wow. To get everything you could out of a little yellow menaces, while not accidentally squirting acid into anyone's eyes. The precariousness of the situation aside, Cove continued the conversation with a question of his own. Derek, you made lemonade, but did you ever make the whole lemonade stand? Like, where you try to sell it to random people who pass by? Oh yeah, it was a mess, and I think we only sold like 2 cups. Nicholas kept drinking as supply, and George's effort to stop him spilled even more of it. Plus, the kids fighting over the lemonade jar probably scared people away from the stall. But it's not like I was expecting that to be some kind of entrepreneurial success. It was for Nico and George to have fun, and they did mostly. As usual, tales of Derek's endeavors as a big brother got Cove to chuckle. You were also smiling, even though your fingers had started to cramp after so much lemon compacting. Never got to do it. It's not fair. I didn't ever try. I could never talk to strangers like that. Yeah, I don't like talking to strangers, so. That's just my chair, y'all. Hey, that's fair. It was pretty awkward whenever anyone did come by, but man, all this business talk makes me think about how I only met either of you because my dad partnered with Cove's dad's business. If that hadn't have happened, you probably wouldn't have ever learned I existed. You'd still know each other though. Derek squeezed his 12th lemon chunk with a fittingly sour expression on his face. He accidentally made himself feel like a third wheel. In the cluster of human juicers, Derek was in the middle, yet he began to despite being next to you. You and Cove looked at one another from over Derek's lower head. Cove pushed himself to smile through his concerned muscle, giving Derek's arm a little nudge with his elbow. I worry about that kind of thing sometimes too. If my dad hadn't picked this street to move to, I wouldn't have met Nori. The bravery he mustered began to disintegrate after putting the truth to the front of his mind. Cove swallowed bitterly. I don't like it when I start thinking about that, but my dad still would have had his business, so I would have still found you. Sheepishly, Derek pressed his shoulders up around his face. He managed a small smile. It's rough for all of us when your parents live and what your parents do has to matter so much to everything. Derek bit his lip, unwilling to let himself continue to speak negatively, but like a turtle coming out of his shell, Derek lifted himself off the counter and rejoined you and Cove at his regular eye level. We didn't meet each other, and we're friends. That's what counts. Exactly. What ifs don't make a difference because we're already here. Yeah, the hypotheticals really don't make a difference. We could have met another way somehow, the three of us who worry over those things. Wait, that's three of us who worry about those things. I'm glad we got to meet. Soon we'll be old enough to decide everything for our lives. You smell. Exactly. Yep. This. Yeah. Cove quietly watched over his friend, soothed by his uplifted mood. Then his lips parted as a pleasant thought came to mind. Hey, this is where I was standing when I first met you. Oh yeah. Derek bounced up on his toes and tossed a lemon piece he had been working on over into the trash. It landed inside perfectly, but I was on the other side of the counter back then, and now I'm in the kitchen with you. I caught your ear and you lifted your brow. You remember the night Cove told you he'd met a new kid named Derek, but he didn't say much about it. All you really knew was that their parents had started working together and that Derek began to come around the neighborhood for visits. Derek could recognize an intrigued audience when he saw one and did what he knew how to do. Tell the rest of the story. Mr. Holden invited my dad over for a meal at his house after their partnership was official. He talked about Cove before, when him and my dad were getting to know each other. You can't get away from hearing about Mr. Holden's top-notch son if you spend any time with him. Off to the side, Cove mumbled with embarrassment over what he clearly thought was a unnecessary addition. Eric laughed the minor interruption off. My dad suggested that I came too, since we were the same age. Mr. Holden was apparently really into that idea. I had no idea what to expect from something like that, but I wanted to go sort of business dinner with my dad. It felt pretty cool to be invited, and then I went. Whatever I was imagining before I got here, Mr. Holden definitely wasn't it. I had thought my dad was casual for a professional business person, but Cove's dad takes the cake. A warmth smile. A warmth come. Wow. Y'all, my sugar's fucked. We'll get through this together. A warmth came to Cove's expression, not the red-hot heat of fluster from before, but a gentleness that was based on his honest love for his parent. A lot of people don't expect my dad to be how he is. What did you think about me when you first met me, you know? Derek mindlessly scratched his damp hand against the back of his head. A stray lemon seed hung onto one of the spikes of his hair. He didn't want to cut the two off, so the little bit went unmentioned. Honestly, when I spotted you in the back of the kitchen, I thought Mr. Holden had another older kid he was hiding, because there was no way that guy was 13. You were so tall and fit, you just stared at people. You seemed like a tough upper grade teen who never really talked to somebody like me. Sorry y'all, I'm sick. You snickered under your breath. If you didn't know any better, you'd think he was describing Elizabeth. Having that description be assigned to Cove Holden, of all people, was hilarious. Cove was equally startled by Derek's choice of words, his eyes opened wide in amazement. You thought I was tough? Yeah, I did, but thought is definitely the right word for that. That instantly put Cove into a pouting mood. Oh god. He pressed both his palms against the marble countertop. Not bothering to squeeze another lemon, Cove didn't want to play anymore. Derek leaned his shoulder against Cove's side affectionately. He reached past him to the lemon slice Cove wasn't using and started to juice it himself. Sorry. There's nothing wrong with being a softie. I like that about you. Bringing Derek's statement to life, Cove visibly relaxed his stance. The tone of his voice was equally delicate. I guess it's not bad. Cove was honestly kidding himself if he thought he was anything other than sensitive sweetheart. But just like Derek, there was something you treasured about him. It's great, Cove. Cove took a new piece of fruit and rejoined the lemonade, making efforts. Derek pinched an eye shut from the tension of crushing a chunk in his fist. He hesitantly continued the topic. So what about me? When you first met me, what kind of impression did you get? With much less force, Cove used both his hands to work on a single lemon. He answered the question while staring off into space. That was likely the same expression Derek had seen the moment they had met. That face he had read as intimidating rather than easily distracted. Oh, I thought you probably like sports. Yep. All three of you shook from laughter, bumping against each other with your closeness, like a bunch of grapes on the vine rustling in the wind. Okay, Nora, your turn. What do you think about me when we met? Oh. Your mind drifted back a few months ago before summer vacation had begun. You'd stepped out your house late in the evening and Cove was sitting on the curb with someone else. Someone you'd never seen in your life, not even in passing school. A green-eyed boy with a football jersey who was joking around lightheartedly with your longtime neighbor. You'd guessed immediately that he was the Derek kid from the Holden's new business relationship. That or Cove had learned a magic spell to summon a new friend out of nowhere. You had stood there staring for only a second, but the newcomer noticed your presence quickly. He jumped right to his feet, jogged across the street, and struck out his hand for you to shake. With the wide grin that you were so familiar with now, he introduced himself to you for the first time as Derek. Thought you were so nice. I thought you were younger than Cove. I thought you were the politest teenager I've ever met. I too thought this guy liked sports. I thought you were cute. I didn't know what to think. Yeah. I'm gonna say I thought you were the politest. Yeah. Ah, thanks. I expect to hear what you thought of me now. Derek's gaze shifted from the picture in front of him to settle on you instead. There was a focus in his eyes. It made you hold your breath from anticipation. I thought you were really fun. Really? Just by looking like to somebody? Just looking at somebody, they're fun? Okay. Weird. Oh, okay. I was looking at this like little white speck. Y'all see that? Y'all can't answer me. Like dust particle. I don't know. Anyways, you'd hoped you'd been able to inhale again after he spoke, but that only made it worse. You struggled to get any oxygen in. I'm glad you didn't think I sucked. Thank you for telling me. Okay, you smirked. Yeah. Definitely not. By the way, you have lemon seed in your hair. And then you kept... I'm gonna tell me he has a lemon seed in his hair. Oh. Derek raked his hands through his light brown strands blindly. Unfortunately, he focused on the top and the side, so he never hit the right spot. One of your hands covered the laughter coming out of your mouth, and you used that to point out the target at the back of his head. Finally, he was able to brush the seed onto the floor. He bent down to pick it up and dropped it in the side of the counter. Thanks, Nori. You're welcome. We could add a little bit of lemon zest to that. Derek fumbled to move the topic elsewhere. His darkening cheeks were probably the reason why. Do you have a grater or a peeler? Yeah. Cove gestured to the same drawer the knife came from. Derek dug through it and successfully retrieved a multi-textured grater. A grater for what? He took his stuff to the opposite side of the kitchen to not get in the way and worked with his back to you and Cove. Cove tilted his head thoughtfully. He was inspired by Derek's work ethic. Ethic? I don't know. If it's gonna be fancy lemonade with zest, then we should do that thing where you put the whole slices in too. I can cut a few from the leftover lemons. Can you pour the water and sugar in the pitcher so it can start to dissolve? Yep. You started filling up the sparkling jug with chilled filtered water from the fridge, and then you remembered to put ice in the drink too. The diluted lemon juice sloshed around and threatened to spill over as you piled in the ice. You left some space for Cove's lemon slices. Finally, you took a hold of the hefty bag of white sugar and pulled it close to the counter's edge. Stray grains of sugar that coated the bag came to stick against your still damp fingers instead. You felt like you were building a sandcastle at the beach. You added 1 pinch. You added half a cup of sugar. You added a full cup of sugar. You had 2 cups of sugar. Just poured it into the pot. Yep. You searched around the kitchen until you found a colorful ceramic mixing spoon. You dunked in the pitcher and carefully stirred. A quiet smile grew on your face as you watched the bits of sugar swirl around in a pale yellow drink. At this point, the separate ingredients had truly come together to become lemonade. Round and round you turned the spoon. It was almost hypnotic the way the juice whirled inside the pitcher. Your trance was broken by a sharp hiss at your side. You dropped the spoon, losing it in the depths of the lemonade, and snapped your head towards Cove. He was holding his left hand up to his face. A thick bubble of dark red had slipped down from one of his fingers and left a streak over his palm. Oh, ouch. You completely froze. Derek, Cove is hurt. You screamed at the sight of his wound. That's not great. Where do you keep the bandages? Yeah, where do you keep the bandages? Cove painfully shrugged. It's nothing. Without even thinking about it, Cove reached his hand down to wipe the mess off his pants. Luckily for his trousers, Derek flipped around at the commotion. His tense, worried face looked at the scene, and a disbelieving shout startled Cove into freezing. Don't do that! Cove stared, I don't know that word, y'all, incredulously from the corner of his eye with an arm awkwardly sticking out from the side. His sudden pause in a strange position reminded you of the red light, green light game you played at your elementary school, except there was no green and only red in Cole's version. I'm fine, no way. You're gonna ruin your clothes and maybe your finger. It could get infected. Derek stretched his arms high to grasp the taller teen by the shoulders. He stepped backwards, getting Cove to move with him. We're gonna clean that off for you. For real, I'm sorry. Cove muttered and averted fine as he stumbled along with Derek, who was reversing out of the kitchen. Nori, do you mind cleaning up the cutting board? No, I'll take care of it. He gathered the knife onto the cutting board and brought it over to the trash. The lemon slices couldn't be used in the drink after that. You used the knife to scrape them off into the bag. Then you got to rinsing the board and the knife in the sink with soap and hot water. You switched between staring down at the studs and checking over the counter for the boys. You were careful not to accidentally get a cut of your own. But it was hard not to wonder what was going on down the hall, my bad. By the time you'd finished washing up, Cove and Derek re-emerged in the living room. An unassuming brown bandage was wrapped around the cut on Cove's finger.
It's okay.
It wasn't that deep. We washed it off, got it clean, and put a bandage on it. It is new. Derek marched with confidence right back into the kitchen. You can tell he's a good big brother. Cove hesitated in the living room. He waved apologetically. Hey, you really okay? I definitely am. I just nicked myself with the lemon slipped. The juice stung me way worse than the cut itself. That's a relief. Thanks for helping, Derek. Thank you, too. It's cleaner in here. He held his hand up high. Wow, he held his hand up for a high five. It had been washed clean of lemon juice that coated it before. You slapped his hand. You gave him that. Let's slap his hand. You swung your palm forward and clapped Derek back. He pumped his arms enthusiastically as a follow-up. Cove walked over to join the two of you, smiling ruefully. Thanks for caring. Always, man. Now what? Well, he took a second between you and Cove as he puzzled out a next step, and then he beamed. Let's try lemonade. It doesn't need the slices or the zest. Derek gave an exaggerated wave across the front of his chest, blowing the whole thing off. Cove eagerly supported the sentiment. He was more than ready to put the prior incident behind him.
Right.
Yeah, lemonade doesn't need to be fancy. It's lemonade. Hey, look at it. Derek nodded twice as he strained to lift the nearly full pitcher. He had to balance it on his tiptoes to pour the juice into a set of 3 glasses that had been put out earlier. If Derek noticed that there was a spoon clattering around in there, he pretended that he didn't notice. Thank you, I'm good. Okay then, you took a glass. You took a glass for a taste. Passed on the lemonade. Wait, it's not gonna be good. Thank you. At the same time, Cove and Derek tipped their cups and took full gulps of drink. The reaction was immediate. Cove's back went stock straight, and then he spit it. Wait, what? The reaction was immediate. Cove's back went stock straight, and then he spit into the cup. Derek's face and body scrunched together. He was polite enough to choke the gritty beverage down. That's not lemonade. That's lemon-flavored sugar goop. Derek exhaled painfully and chuckled across from nervous shock. It's kind of chunky. He joined in the laughter, though yours was far more sinister. I added the sugar just like you asked. You boldly took a sip of the sweet lemon slop, smirking the entire time. Derek used a hand to wipe a few drops of what could be loosely called lemonade off the grin of his lips.
That's really bad.
Here's something else, Nori. Cove nudged the glass of undrinkable liquid away from himself, but his enthusiasm hadn't been squashed. He had his own idea on what to do. Let's fill the water balloons. Slowly, cautiously, Derek questioned Cove's plan. He didn't want to run things, but expressing concern was more important.
Are you sure?
You'd be alright in the water balloon fight with your finger and stuff? Cove remained relaxed in the face of Derek's worry. He wasn't gonna bring the mood down after the commotion he caused earlier. He responded to inquiry by slickly pulling out the big gun. Your neighbor smirked as he held up his left arm to his chest, showing the full length of the jagged pale scar that marked him. I've had worse. Derek's eyes widened and his mouth was stuck hanging open. He'd seen Derek in a swimsuit. He had never had a single scratch on his skin, or if he did, it was tiny enough to be covered by nothing more than the neon shorts. You can only imagine what Cove had gone through to get an injury with such a lasting impact. So if Cove Holden said he could manage a cut, he could manage that cut. You know, you're pretty tough after all. The compliment had Cove preening. He caressed his trusty scar and giggled childishly. Yeah, you win that round, Cove. Alright, let's do it. Nothing else needed to be said. The three of you busted open the baggies of the water balloons, pushed the tools of your lemonade production aside, and got to work on the summer group project. You stretched the open end of the water balloon over the faucet. The plastic fit snugly around the silver spout. You still kept your hands out to make sure it was certain the balloon didn't pop off and shoot a stream into your face like a busted water fountain. Derek flipped the handle up for you, and the first saggy balloon rapidly expanded. Out of the bag, the balloon was a dark emerald color, but in only a few seconds, the bloated sack of water had stretched to thin, and the green had become almost translucent. It was pale as Cove's hair. Before it was pushed beyond its limits, Derek turned the faucet off again. He carefully pinched the strained top of the perfectly plump toy, and then harvested it off the silver vine. Cove reached out for it as intended to tie the balloons while you and Derek continued filling. Derek looked between the balloon and Cove's hand and called a timeout. He'd been a little too overeager to get involved and realized in the moment that their team arrangement wasn't the most efficient. He requested to switch positions with Cove. Cove rolled his eyes but couldn't argue. His bandage could easily be yanked right off by the taut loops of plastic that formed around the fingers while trying to tie them. Your optimized party got back into the action, with you hooking balloons into the place, Cove handling the water distribution, and Derek sealing the deal with a knot. Soon, you had a couple dozen shiny water balloons overflowing in the sink basin. Cove pushed off from the counter silently. He disappeared from the kitchen and left you and Derek wondering. He went down the hall into his bedroom. He was only gone for a minute before stepping back into the hall with the pure white whole speckled laundry basket. The point of that was obvious, but his choice of the bin did get a bit of ribbing from Derek. Did you dump your clothes on the floor for that? Yeah, they were already dirty. Oh. Derek blinked. He hadn't expected that to be true, or for Cove to be so straightforward about it. You snickered at the exchange, still casually leaning against the sink. When Cove dropped the very newly empty laundry basket on the tile, you cradled a few water balloons in your arms and placed them inside. Cove and Derek joined in with the transfer. Eventually, every water balloon had safely made it into the basket. Nice work. Derek and Cove each took one side and lifted it, while you helped steer by grabbing the back end. Moving as one, the three of you shuffled out the kitchen and through the living room to make the treasure chest of jiggly jewels into the neighborhood. The door was open and the drop from the curb to the street was overcome, and you successfully placed the laundry basket in the center of the empty road. Well, we're here. We're here. Derek slowly curled and uncurled fist. Cove didn't take his eyes off you or Derek. No one made a move for the pile. You broke the pause and grabbed a weapon. You held your breath from the guard. Let's fuck it, let's grab it. Derek wasn't going to be caught off guard. He stuck both of his hands deep into the mass and came out with two balloons. Cove attempted to keep up and almost tripped over himself to get a water balloon of his own. In quick succession, Derek launched one shot at you and the other at Cove. Ah! You felt the impact of a solid object slamming against your chest before it burst into a million pieces and a shock of cold water seeped into the front of your dress. Cove was left sputtering with a dark stain at the lower edge of his top. He shook the hit off and chucked the balloon directly at Derek in return and exploded against his right shoulder. No one was dry anymore. No one was safe. The war was on. You ran to put distance between you. You threw yours at Cove. You threw yours at Derek. Let's throw it at Cove. It landed true and added a second dripping blotch on Cove's usual shirt. Awesome, Nori. The three of you elbowed against the others to dig into the pile to restock your supplies. Politely taking turns was out of the question. The water balloon fight was in full force. Derek sprinted up and down the street, making himself into a moving target. He'd only make a mad dash for the center area when he ran out of balloons. Cove had no fear of being an easy mark and stayed right by the laundry basket, lobbing strike after strike at you and Derek. You hid in your home's doorway and took shots from the cover. Chased after Derek. You competed with Cove for control of the pile. You chased after Derek. It is his DLC. As fast as he was, you stayed hot on the heels. Derek had to duck from shots raining over him thanks to Cove and watch his back on accounts to you. He darted around, skipping, jumping, and changing course in a mostly vain attempt to avoid the onslaught, though he breathed heavily through a massive grin. Laughter and water splashes filled the normally quiet Sunset Bird neighborhood. You were convinced the mean grandparents would jump out and shout about the noise. Luckily, no one interrupted your rivalry? I don't know what that is. And even if someone had, it would have been putting their dryness at risk by confronting your group. Rapidly, the amount of balloons dwindled until each person only had one left in hand, and the laundry basket was nothing except a little puddle at the bottom with scraps of rubber scattered in it. Arms were being held high in the air, taking aim, and eyes shifted from one option to the other. Derek wound his hand further back, Cove, and you couldn't take your eyes off him. Your teeth gritted as you tried desperately to calculate where the balloon would fly. Would it be Cove or you? However, Derek chose neither. He launched it straight up in the air, reached an impressed height. You barely see the speck of yellow against the vast blue sky. Until inevitably it sailed down and smacked against the tarmac. Derek broke into more snickers the exact moment the balloon broke into the 1,000 drops of water. He wasn't the only one amused by the stunt. Cove's smile bent and he opened his fingers to let the balloon drop harmlessly to the ground. Cove didn't pick it back up. Instead, he brutally brought his foot against his own weapon and decimated it under his heel. Sorry, I can't talk, guys. My sugar's fucked up. Alright, a jovial truce has been formed between the two. You threw it at Cove, you threw it at Derek, you broke it against your head, you stepped on the balloon too. Break it against their head. If no one was throwing balloons at each other, that didn't mean you had to waste a shot. You positioned the balloon at the center of your forehead, pressed unforgivably until it popped. Derek and Cove exclaimed amazement. It was like you'd done that party trick where you crushed the soda against your head, or as if you were Derek crushing a piece of pie in his own face to entertain his brothers. That's how the grandest battle your neighborhood had ever likely seen came to an end. You were all dripping wet and out of breath, and you couldn't be happier. Derek rubbed his hands together in satisfaction, before crouching to the ground to start collecting tiny bits of water balloon debris. Cove strode around to gather the confetti-like trash on his own accord as well. There didn't have to be a discussion. Derek and Cove had that quality in common, a distaste for litter. You appreciated that about both of them and joined in to help pick up the pieces off the ground. You quietly wandered around, filling your fists with the rubbery remains as the sun crept behind the condo roofs. Your shadows grew longer in the waning light. You felt the damp cling of your clothes more acutely as the excitement died down. Your team managed to finish cleaning up before the night and had completely fallen. All the trash was dumped into a tall green trash can at the side of Cove's house. With all that remained of the carnage being a few drying watermarks spotting the street, your group had returned to the state that you had originally started in directionless relaxation. Cove had been perfectly willing to return to his house while still wet and scrounge up fresh glasses of lemonade. Plus, he had your candies tucked under his arm. It was a struggle to balance it all. But Cove took one for the team as someone who had actually lived there. You and Derek didn't have to go in and make a mess out of the Holden home, though you imagine Cove's dad wouldn't have cared. He passed a drink to you and one to Derek, and then he used his free hand to flip the laundry basket over. It was less flimsy than it looked because Cove sat on it, and it didn't buckle at all. Derek politely passed on the seat Cove provided. He remained standing while shifting his weight from one foot to the other. You stood around near Derek. You sat. It's on the ground. If you cared about keeping your clothes pristine, you wouldn't have gotten into a water balloon fight. A little bit of dirt couldn't hurt. Cove quietly took a sip of his lemonade. There was no gagging, so you assumed he added more water before bringing it out. Derek circled the top of his glass with the tip of his finger, watching Cove.
Are you alright?
How's your hand? Cove savored another taste of the drink, let out a fresh sigh, and then answered, It's still fine. Cool. The ritual of checking on him was complete. Derek could only chuckle bashfully over his habit. Cove smiled over at the rim of his cup. There was comfort in knowing Derek would always care. In between enjoying the lemonade was plenty of munching on candies. It was a match made in heaven. The air was warm enough to be comfortable even with your wet clothes. Lemonade, candies, and good company. That was what days like these were for. It couldn't get much better. Cove agreed contentedly without you even having to say so. Summer really is the best season. I think so too. You simply shrugged. It's only best because of school vacation. It wins by default. Summer is the worst of them. Okay, I was just saying, I don't like summer. Sometimes I can't understand you. A gentle expression rested on Derek's face as he spoke softly. It'd be nice if things could be like this all the time, huh? But then Derek lifted his glass and spoke into a mock outrage to the world at large. But can't it always be summer break? Oh, why can't it? Okay, despite it being an obvious joke, Derek's words struck a chord with Cove. His total chill hardened into seriousness. He downed his glass of lemonade and hopped up onto his feet. I'm gonna go check something. You should come, both of you. He considered that a sufficient offer because Cove simply walked back to the front of his house and left the empty glass at the side of the door. Oh my god. My bad, guys. Derek's gaze followed his friend, and he lifted his one brow. What are we gonna see? You'll see when we get there. You're probably gonna try to talk me out of it, so you don't need to know now. What? He almost dropped his cup. Derek twisted his head to track Cove's moves with his saucer wide eyes. Or maybe Nori would. This is gonna be trouble. Come on. Still completely confident, Cove strolled up the road. Derek gulped, but not the lemonade. He pointed a panicked glance at you. You should go. You pushed yourself off the seat and stood by Derek. Alright. Derek hooked his open hand to the side of the laundry basket. He jogged on his tiptoes to Cove's condo. The bin bumped along against the street behind him. He flung it in front of him and left it there in the entry. He placed his half-empty lemonade by Cove's. You were right behind him. You dropped the candies in the laundry basket and completed the set of glasses by placing yours next to theirs. Let's go. After another light jog, you caught up to Cove. He was going at a leisurely pace and smirked when he saw the two of you in the corner of his vision. Hey. Hi. Together, you, Cove, and Derek left your neighborhood, returned to the main sidewalk, and you took the reach of the grocery store hours earlier. An exchange of glances between you and Derek were the only interaction you'd had for the walk. Cove kept his sun-kissed face forward and his mouth shut. Shopping wasn't on your neighborhood's mind because the building was passed without an acknowledgement. He was taking you further down the path. Only about a minute later, your progress was halted by a row of strikingly orange traffic cones and strings of droopy "Do Not Cross" banners. Should we go around? No, we're here. Huh? Derek stalled. Kovar got on his knees in front of the blocked-off area. His eyes were glinting with intention. I saw this when we were leaving, but people were working on it. The concrete is still wet, and there's no one around now. Yet again, Kov knocked the gas by the Derek. You're not gonna mess it up, right? Cove didn't have to say anything to answer. He shared a coy smile that was enough.
Oh man.
Oh, Cove, that is really bad. The grin on Derek's face trembled, both from laughter and threatening to spill out of fear of getting in trouble. You stared around nervously in case anyone caught you. You shook your head and sighed. Yeah, it makes sense as to why you didn't say this before. Cove, you can't. 1 minute. Perfect, let's do it. Oh, really? Okay. Cove fearlessly stuck his finger into the muddy gray concrete. He slowly etched out a series of numbers. When he was done, the corner of the block had 2011 scribbled into it for all to see. He surveyed this work with pride while wiping his dirtied finger on the side of his pant leg. You wrote your initials. You wrote all 3 of your initials. You added Summer by Cove's 2011. You drew a heart. Let's write all 3 of our initials. There's plenty of space for you to get the signatures in there. The 3 of the pair of letters were placed all around Cove's 2011. Derek stared hard at the soft, forbidden canvas and slowly crouched down. He paused, bit his lip, and ultimately pressed one finger into the tacky surface to leave a small print. He left a sign of presence there on that day, right along with Cove, and relief came to Derek's features once he had finished. Hopefully it dries before anybody finds out. Yeah. The single word was only a whisper, but it was warm and pure. Thanks for taking us, Cove. You're welcome. Cove dusted his pants off as he stood after a job well done. Derek shot up as well. Newly invigorated, he looked into the sky and squinted at the sun. The day was coming to an end, but no one could say your group had wasted it. That was true for the entire summer. No matter what happened when school started again, and when an unknown future arrived, you'd still have all the memories you made together when you had the chance and the things you left behind. Well, that concludes Lemonade. That was a cute little DLC. We're getting to know Derek. I'm excited to, read more. And I'll see you guys later.